Let's hear from Terry Gorman.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thanks for having me. My name's Terry Gorman. I'm the president of Rhode Islanders for Immigration Law Enforcement. And like Representative Williams, I've been coming here a really long time. I guess she's been coming here 17 years. I've been coming here 12. And we're on the same side of the issue that we started off 12 years ago. But please notice that it's not an adversarial position, since I got a nice kiss from Representative Williams on the way in. And I feel bad that I missed Mr. Magaziner before he left, because I had a few aliases I'd like to give him to see if I got any money coming from the state of Rhode Island. But getting to the issue of the day, I beg to differ on quite a few things. But first off, Representative Williams said, since all of these things with the ITIN number, no one's been killed. Well, it just so happens in 2012, a 6-year-old boy was run over by an illegal alien with no driver's license or an expired driver's license, and he was supposed to have been left the country voluntarily in 2009. Another instance of a young man, 28 years old, was hit by a van, and I don't have all the details on that one because I wasn't prepared until she said that. But anyway, it's not the case that I don't know about fires being started, but people have been killed by illegal aliens in the state of Rhode Island in the last, say, 10 years or 7 years. Also, in the bill, I apologize, but I don't see anything in the bill that requires somebody to get insurance. And to get a driver's license, I get a driver's license, I don't have to get insurance. But if I register my vehicle, I have to get insurance. So I think that's a big difference. And the reference was made that's similar in this bill, similar to in-state tuition. And that's true, and I disagree with that also, that it says in the bill has a document filed that they're going to become a citizen or an affidavit that they will as soon as possible. I think that's ridiculous to even have that in there. And the first part of the bill, on page 4, line 18, it says, permits to any applicant who meets the requirements of the charter but is unable to establish legal presence in the United States, and a few other words. This book that I have here is from the Latino Policy Institute. The Latino Policy Institute claims that their studies indicate there are 25,000 illegal aliens have jobs in Rhode Island right now. 25,000 illegal aliens have jobs in Rhode Island. If you look at that, just imagine the shape that the DMV is in right now if potentially 25,000 people could show up to ask for driver's licenses. We have a bill that was heard, I believe, I don't know what the vote was, but it says it's H5687 sub A, that states when a person who does not understand the English language well takes their driver's license test, they'll be allowed to have an interpreter with them. I don't see where it says at no cost to the state of Rhode Island that they have an interpreter with them. And if a person needs an interpreter to understand the driver's license regulations in the state of Rhode Island, how, when they go out, will they understand any traffic signs? It doesn't make any sense to me because the traffic signs are in English, they're not in Spanish. The mayor mentioned something about a form of ID as a matricular consular card. A matricular consular card is an identification card from a foreign government. We happen to have a Mexican consul here that issues them and a Guatemalan consul. It's not legal documentation for legal identity according to the United States government. They don't recognize a consular card. I go back again to the DMV. When someone presents any of that information, it says a valid driver's license or state identification card issued by another state or U.S. territory. That's okay. Well, the state, again, of our DMV, how is anybody going to verify whether that license is legal or not? Do we have provisions that somebody at the DMV would say, oh, here's Terry Gorman, his license number is such and such in Maryland? Do they check that? How do we know? And it's 10, when it says identification from another state, there are 10 out of 12 states that have the same law as we're trying to pass now. And all it states, this bill says they can't use it unless it's a driver's license from another state. Well, they can't issue they don't issue driver's licenses in those other states to people that unless they have an actual driver's license. If you go down to page 5, line 24 through 26, certification from the tax administrator. Well, we're here today telling you that there are 25,000 illegal aliens potentially able to apply for a driver's license. And if we gave it to them, we're not in compliance with the Real ID Act. We're going to give these driver's licenses or driver's permits out on July 17th. That's the effective date of this bill. The Real ID Act, we have an extension till October of 2017. And getting back to that line, I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. That line says you have to provide 2 years tax documents from the tax administrator of the state of Rhode Island. How many illegal aliens does that eliminate from that 25,000? Because it's almost impossible to find out from the state of Rhode Island how many people are submitting tax forms using an ITIN number, which is an individual tax identification number. And just so you know, in the 12 years I've been coming here, Governor Kacheri put in a bill that wouldn't allow grandfathered in ITIN numbers. When people went to get their license renewed, they couldn't get a driver's license using the ITIN number. That created quite a stir. And I was right there myself in the governor's office, is the anteroom outside the office, where a group of people came and stormed themselves into the door, in the door, almost knocked the lady off her feet, the secretary that was standing inside the door, to complain that they wanted to be grandfathered in to our system. And I go back another thing with the verification system. How in the name of God, if you go to the registry of motor vehicles and you got to stand in line for 3.5 hours to renew your driver's license, can the registry of motor vehicles deal with 25,000, potentially 25,000 people that could come and put in for driver's licenses? And as I said, this bill, if it's passed, the effective date is July 17th of this year. We only have an extension of not complying with the Real ID Act until October of 2017. So July, August, September, October, we're going to have 4 months, and potentially the federal government could shut the whole thing down. So I ask you to consider all of those things, and we don't have any animosity towards anyone. And another thing I disagree, and I've disagreed for years and years and years with Representative Williams, when she said that these laws that are against illegal aliens are because they're a different, she said, we look different than you. We look different than you. Well, let me tell you, Terry Gorman is on record about 6 years ago celebrating that 35 illegal alien Irishmen were deported from Boston. 35 illegal alien Irishmen. So it's got nothing to do with the color of anybody's skin or what country they come from. It's just the fact we lose sight of the word illegal. And when they do these misdemeanors or minor crimes, just keep this in mind, that if somebody's here is an illegal alien and they commit a DUI, that's their second offense. That's not the first time they get caught doing something. That's their second offense. They came here as an illegal alien, and now they've committed a crime. So I ask your indulgence in not to vote in favor of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Gorman? Representative Shanley.
Want to use mine?
You mentioned a few crimes that were committed by undocumented immigrants.
Yes.
What were those crimes again?
A young
in
boy,
Rhode Island.
A young boy, 6 years old, was run over and killed by an illegal alien with a supposed expired driver's license, who had been, this was in 2012, 2013, I believe, who had been ordered deported and a voluntary deportation in 2009. So it was like 6 years later, he was still here in our country illegally.
So both of these individuals in the crimes that you mentioned, they had driving permits despite being
Well, nobody can seem to explain that, Representative Shanley, that if the paper said he had an expired driver's license. Well, if he's an illegal alien, how could he have an expired driver's license? Unless he was an illegal alien with an individual tax identification number. Because he would have had an expired one before Governor Kacheri put in that law.
What would the correlation be between having some type of driver's license and committing the crime?
There is no correlation. It's just the potential that people are here illegally. We're allowing people to stay. We're actually inviting more people to come. I call these bills the Illegal Alien Benefits, Protections, and Invitations Acts, because that's exactly what we're doing. And when people find out about that law, I don't know if it passed or not, because it was heard today in the House, Chairman, the Representative Shikachi's bill. And what that does is it allows someone that doesn't understand the English language to be accompanied by an interpreter when they take their driver's test. And we're contemplating now giving driver's tests in numerous languages, other than Portuguese, Spanish, and English. We just gave somebody the driver's test in Italian, which was publicized quite a lot about 6 months ago, maybe a little more than that.
So it would be fair to say that it's not your testimony that there's a correlation between an undocumented immigrant having a license and crime, but you're just a broader objection to any undocumented immigrants being present in the state. Is that fair?
With the potential of committing such serious crimes. You know, I don't think there's any more serious crime than running over a 6-year-old boy and killing him and actually trying to get away and not have a license and have already been ordered deported. You know, it's as bad as that Steinley thing, except that illegal alien was deported more times than this fellow was ordered deported.
Okay.
Representative Knight.
Good evening, Mr. Gorman.
Hi, Rep.
In your testimony, you indicated that every single person who is here, who is crossing the border without authorization, has committed a crime, right?
Well, I thought that's what it was. If they came here illegally,
That's what I'm saying is that's what you said in your testimony.
Okay,
right?
But I don't mean that everyone that's here illegally came across the border illegally. I understand that 45% of the people that came here that are here illegally now overstayed visas.
Right. But what my point is that during your testimony, specifically in the DUI example, you said someone who has crossed the border or has overstayed or has done something, who is here illegally and then committed a crime, they've actually committed 2 crimes. Do you remember when you said that?
Yes, I do. Yep.
Okay.
Maybe you're an attorney. I suppose you could correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I don't want to correct you. So I wanted to go back to Representative Shanley's question and ask if you think that if somebody who is here illegally is predisposed to commit crime.
No. No, I don't. I understand what everyone said. There's some of the people here hardworking and trying to take care of their families, and I don't think that they're predisposed to crime. But I think a large portion, maybe I shouldn't say a large portion, but a portion of the illegal immigrant community is predisposed to commit crime. Yes, I do.
And I think we can certainly agree that there are people who are here illegally or undocumented who certainly have committed very serious crimes and need to go. You'll find no argument from me on that. My question is, if you have somebody who is here illegally but has otherwise not done anything bad, right? That big group of people that we're talking about, and they manage to make all the requirements in this bill. They say, yes, I'm trying to apply for citizenship, or I'm trying to get a waiver, for my illegal crossing or my overstay. I'm submitted taxes, I work, I've done all the things, I've done all the right things, I just want a driver's license. What is I'm trying to figure out what the nub of your complaint is regarding this bill for those people.
I think they would have had to fulfill their obligation first to become a U.S. citizen, or have the documentation saying that I'm on the way to becoming a U.S. citizen. Not an affidavit that says, I'm Terry Gorman and hope that next week I'm going to get my citizenship papers. It has to be formal in the regulation in order for me to agree to that.
And if somebody were to manage to make that requirement, and let's say they're applying for a license and they show the application for citizenship or the application for a status, which is the first step, is there anything wrong with that person obtaining a driver's license?
Yeah, there is. And I go back to the word illegal. They've come here illegally, period, end of story. And any of this stuff that's here now, and it's been on TV about all the different things, there's a law, and I think Representative Filippi asked me questions about it the last time, 8 U.S.C. 1324, that says you cannot aid and abet an illegal alien in any circumstances. And this, in my opinion, is aiding and abetting illegal aliens, enable them to get a license to go to work. And another thing that I believe is what we're doing here is we're encouraging employers to hire illegal aliens. Right now, if I own a business and somebody comes and I'm willing to bend the rules a little bit, and I say, okay, Joe, you got to work Monday through Friday. So on Wednesday, Joe can't come because he couldn't get to work. He doesn't have a driver's license. We're saying to that employer, go ahead, hire him anyway, because we're going to give him a driver's license. We're going to allow him to have the privilege to drive. And something else I'd like to say, and it's been for years and years and years, and I have acquaintances from the illegal alien community and the immigrant community who we talk about all the time. We talk amongst ourselves, but I just lost my train of thought. They know. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. It's a good point, but it's probably the best point I wanted to make, and you asked me a question, and
that's okay. It's okay. I have a suggestion. Then,
okay.
Given your testimony, I think that your concerns are best taken up with the federal government, who is the one who they're the people who are in charge of the borders, and frankly, they're the ones who are in charge and have created this dysfunctional immigration system that we have now. At the end of the day, when our citizens, when Rhode Islanders are out on the road, it is kind of a no-brainer. And I got 2 letters from the DMV and the state police in front of me that say safety is the primary consideration. I can tell you, as a lawyer, both as a prosecutor and a defender, I've seen cases where accidents have happened and crimes driving offenses have been committed that might not have otherwise been committed if somebody had been allowed access to a legal way to drive on the roads. And I know we're not going to agree on that, but that, at the end of the day, I mean, that is that's a bread and butter issue for Rhode Islanders, and frankly, immigration and everything that goes with it is a federal issue, and it should just stay up there.
Well,
as Mayor Loris has said, he wants their cops, Providence cops, focusing on the very serious, real dangers of very serious criminality in their city, and it doesn't help to get distracted or get sucked into some, some action that really is politically motivated that's got nothing to do with the safety of the residents in Providence or any other town.
well, let me ask you this, as an attorney practicing in the courts, have you ever come upon someone that had a serious accident because they couldn't read a street sign? You're more than likely going to say no.
The beauty of the street signs is that they have specific shapes and colors to allow for people who are illiterate, as I learned in my driver's education course when I was 14.
Yep, I did too, a lot longer ago than you, about those signs. But if there's a do not enter sign, how does a person know that? The do not enter sign is pretty generic. It says do not enter, and it's a couple of different colors. But if I just came here yesterday from Guatemala and I was out driving my car and I saw that sign, I defy anybody to tell me that they know what that means, that's a universal sign for the driving in any country.
That's why I want that person to have a driver's license.
When you say about illegal immigration is a federal issue, that's why we started our organization 12 years ago, because illegal immigration laws were not being enforced. They were flagrantly being violated, and as we've gone along in the last 12 years, it's only gotten worse. And we're sitting back saying the solution to the problem is go ahead. And I just thought of what I was going to say before. We stand in front of this committee, when the illegal aliens testify, they'll tell you that we're here illegally, we're driving illegally, we have a job illegally, and we're staying illegally. That's what they'll tell you. And right in this booklet, the lady that wrote this booklet, that was responsible for this booklet, she said on one of the talk radio shows, in my opinion, very arrogantly, she said, look, there are 30,000 illegal aliens living in the state of Rhode Island, and they're not going anywhere. With that, I thank you, unless there's more questions.
Anything else for Terry? Representative Price.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Terry. So, going back to what you were talking about the immigration laws being ignored, and that's brought us to this point now. And going back to this, the death of the 6-year-old that was run over by the illegal alien, or an overstay. Well, what were if you could tell me the details on that person, and if the law was upheld for his for death ensuing, and what was done, does the law apply once they? I mean, when does the law apply? The law obviously doesn't apply. They can come here illegally. They can drive illegally. They can do all this illegal stuff. But when they commit an illegal action, like slaughtering a 6-year-old boy or girl or whatever, does the law start to apply then?
Well, I can't say specifically. I don't have a law background to say where the line is drawn. But it's definitely that fella was here. He was an illegal alien who was ordered deported and did not self-deport in 2009. And he continued to drive until 2012. And his mother, the little boy's mother, was taking them to the circus. There's different stories about how exactly it happened. But she was taking the little boy to the circus, holding his hand, and they stepped out from behind a parked car, and this fella ran over him. Came down the street and ran over him. Actually tried to get away, but the neighbors stopped him. He backed up, and consequently he was charged with whatever. I think he should have been charged with murder myself. But those details, Rep, you can find those things out. But Terry Gorman, as Rhode Island is immigration law enforcement. They don't give me those answers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions for Mr. Gorman? Thank you, Terry.